Traders who can bounce back the most quickly are often the ones who manage to trade with the highest levels of objectivity. The good news is that these recovery skills can be learned. And that's why I've invited Simon Kearney to discuss this with me. Simon is the co-founder of Readiness, a wellbeing technology company specialising in helping leading businesses like Telstra and Jayco unlock performance through technology and wellbeing. Simon's philosophy for over 20 years in elite high-performance sports has been designing solutions at the intersection of psychology, well-being and performance. Before Readiness, Simon led the high-performance programs with elite sporting organisations, monitoring and improving all of the key areas of well-being such as sleep, mindset, hydration, nutrition and physical conditioning. He designed and managed this with organisations such as Tennis Australia, the Women's Tennis Australia Tour, the Melbourne Tigers NBL Basketball Club, the Melbourne Storm, and Melbourne and St Kilda football clubs. With his focus on elite performance, he is ideally placed to provide us with specific strategies to increase our resilience as traders. Simon, welcome.
Thanks, Louise. Thanks for having me. It's great to be on.
You recommend a holistic approach to wellbeing. Tell me more about this and how it can impact performance.
Well, my background's been in elite sport here in Australia for about 20 years, and I've found so often, from a performance point of view, we'd have players who would be physically fine. So they're about to run out in a football field or a tennis court or a basketball court, and all their physical parameters are really, really good. But it turns out so often they still may not be performing too well because of non-physical reasons. So issues with home life, partners, kids, contract stuff to do with sport. So we actually ended up starting a business called Readiness along that, in terms of taking the strategies that we use in elite sport to proactively assess the holistic well-being of our athletes, who bring that out to the real world, because so often, as I said, we would see these non-physical reasons having a huge impact on performance. And I think too, probably what we do poorly, I think, is we probably segment wellbeing too much. I think it's very collective and it's all in one. How often you're busy at work and you're not going great at work, well, that affects your home life, and vice versa. If home life's pretty full on, it's going to affect your work life as well. So if we would take a big effort and a lot of energy put into physical health, mental health and sleep health, because life's not a linear progression in terms of your well-being. You've got ups and downs all the way through. So if we can look at all those parameters of well-being, then we get a better result from a holistic point of view and a better outcome with performance.
And what are the symptoms of physical and emotional fatigue, and why is it important for traders and athletes to notice these?
And that's a good point. It's athletes, our platform's all for businesses and schools coming out, but we treat the human being. And certainly the symptoms that we see is lack of motivation, an increase in sickness, energy drops, engagement drops, anxiety increases. So you can pick up on these signs yourself. So having a really good self-awareness is really, really important to be able to nip these in the bud nice and early, to prevent them from getting worse. And then recognising your triggers that trigger that emotional drop or that fatigue as well. Certainly around, work-life balance and excessive hours at work and stuff like that. So being able to check in and get that self-awareness is really, really important, to nip things in the bud nice and early and recognise what your triggers are and the effects of emotional fatigue, and then being able to do something about it.
Absolutely. I think there's so much to be said for recognising things early and then working out a strategy in advance.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Be proactive.
Yeah, completely. And what would your advice be to traders who are struggling with their energy levels?
I sort of give the analogy around finance. You can't keep drawing money out of the bank without putting anything in. So if we keep, take from an emotional point of view and an energy point of view, and we don't look after ourselves and put energy back into ourselves, well, we're going to burn out. And we see that a lot since COVID. And we're seeing it certainly with Readiness now. We survey a lot of thousands and thousands of users as part of their platform, and we're seeing that a lot earlier this year than what we're seeing in previous years. So we need to take a lot more care of that. But certainly look after your body and the mind will follow. So if you look, and that's a controllable thing. So sleep, hydration, nutrition, exercise are really, really important. I know they're old things to say, we've all heard them, but if we get the body right, the mind will follow after that from a holistic wellbeing point of view. And also getting that work-life balance right. And certainly one of the big things coming out of COVID has been the lack of connection. So getting a good social support around you as well goes a really, really long way.
There's actually some research about this that's come out, that's new research, and it was talking about how even loose ties are important for connection.
Yes.
So the people you meet at the gym or the person you get your coffee from to say hello and to have a bit of a conversation, that can alleviate any feelings of feeling lonely.
Yes.
It's interesting, there's people in the inner circle as well as the people in the outer circle.
Yeah. And we had that taken away from us for 2 years, didn't we? So we've all realised how important that is now. So connection has been lost, but getting those little inner and outer connections too, it's a great point, is vitally important.
Yeah, I actually was talking with a friend of mine who's just become a full-time trader, and he sent me some research saying that what the minimum requirement is one decent conversation about something meaningful per day. One. So you wouldn't think it'd be that hard to achieve.
Yeah, it should be pretty good.
Yeah. I think
I
that's
think
to
too,
consider.
when we've seen with a lot of our clients at Redentis as well, is not many clients are back in the office 5 days a week now. It's all, a hybrid working approach. So again, when they're back in the office, is getting those connections and having those meaningful conversations is really, really important, but also with family and friends as well. So getting that social network and social support is super important for your well-being.
Yes. I do see a lot of people and traders spreading themselves too thin, trading a lot of different markets and a lot of different time frames, and it takes a physical toll. What would your advice be here when people are spreading themselves too thin?
I think too, if we even go back a step, Louise, even with the community's awareness around wellbeing is still a bit token. Again, I think it's been highlighted coming out of COVID, which has been good, but certainly going forward, we need to put a lot more time into it as a community as well, but certainly individually, be realistic about how much you can get done in a day. And certainly with the traders, they would have a lot of midnight calls and calls during the night and working during the night and very odd hours. So make your wellbeing a priority. Be realistic about how much you can do in the day and set boundaries for yourself and others around you too. So no one can work 24/7. So especially if your hours are all out and your sleep rhythms are all out as well, that has a huge bearing on your overall wellbeing. And again, making sure that set up and structure your week well, where you know what works for you, not having back-to-back nights of long hours and not being able to catch up on sleep during the day is super important as well. And just keep a schedule and stick to it if you can. Control the controllables with what you can do in maintaining your work-life balance and being very realistic about how many hours are in a day and a week to work.
Yeah, I like that. You're talking about building in micro breaks.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's really something that a lot of people don't realise they have control over, being able to structure things so that there are certain downtimes throughout the day, but then also some macro breaks are important as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've had, we do a lot of great work with some big companies there, and they're implementing walk meetings where they can actually get some exercise done whilst they're meeting as well. And not having too many meetings back to back, they can actually debrief from the meeting, catch a break, go for a walk. We call it readiness time, where they can have time for themselves and their own well-being, which is good. So, as I said, keep it realistic and work out what works best for you in terms of your structure of the week to get the best result and perform at your best.
Oh, that's great. Actually, one of my colleagues is doing therapy by walking around, where instead of being on the couch as a therapist, it's where you walk around.
Walk and talk.
She thinks that it's almost impossible to cry and navigate at the same time.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah. So being able to work out what works for you and being very aware of your own symptoms, your physical
self-awareness is huge.
Of tension and stress.
Nip it in the bud nice and early and recognise your triggers and being able to do something about it.
Yeah, I think that's so important no matter what your profession.
Yes, exactly.
And what about deliberate practice? Because I think that is something that is quite essential for trading. Can you trust your instinct in the heat of the moment because you've trained yourself into that? I think that's something I'd like to hear your thoughts about.
We learnt this back. I'll give examples of sporting days from the 20 years there is why we would do pre-seasons is, the best teams And the best businesses and the best individuals make the smartest and best decisions under stress in the heat of the moment. Now, you're not born with that, a lot of it. You know, if it's becoming innate and be able to do that in the heat of the battle, you must be able to train it. So deliberate practice is essential to be able to make those smart performance-based decisions in the heat of the moment. Doing that enough and repeating that enough and then being able to do that under pressure, it will become innate. And obviously the more experience you get in those areas, the better you'll be. But, you know, I see so many of our clients too who are, you know, CEOs and been in those big positions for a long time, are still learning and are still practicing that deliberate training to get better in other skills and then make those smart performance-based decisions under pressure. We can never stop learning. And no matter what level you are and what age you are, always bringing on and taking on new initiatives and new education, and then training it and become better at it. When you need to make that crucial decision under pressure, you'll be able to do it. But it's hard to do if you haven't trained it.
It is. And I'm thinking of when one of my children was doing VCE, final year, the idea was that they study under exam conditions. So that there's a time pressure and that everything can be hopefully replicated in the real world that they've experienced under that.
It's a different environment when you're safe and at home and there's no restrictions on time. But when anxiety kicks in and pressure kicks in work conditions and obviously with the traders, it's a very stressful environment. Being able to train that, and that's why, you know, certainly in my days in AFL and NRL and basketball, we would do a lot of what's called match simulation. So train under pressure, train under fatigue, make smart decisions with your heart rate at 190 beats per minute. And if you can do that in training, well, then you'll be able to do it in a game. No different out in the real world.
Yeah, I like that. I think one of the things that some of my traders face is distraction, getting distracted by the spouse, the lawnmower, the leaf blower, their child. So being able to work out before time how to handle those distractions and what their actions will be is a really good way to be able to pre-prepare yourself. To focus.
Clear head, clear mind. And again, more you train that, then better you'll be at it.
And the less fatiguing it is.
It is, exactly.
I think a lot of fatigue is where something blindsides us and then before you know it, that is that load, that cognitive load. Let's talk about the role of fatigue. Do you feel that fatigue is the enemy of clear thinking?
Very much so, it can be, So if we look at what is fatigue and the effects of fatigue, well, our cognition drops, so our ability to make smart decisions and think under pressure drops. Now, there are many reasons why we end up in a fatigue state, but our accuracy and our reaction time drops with fatigue as well. And, you know, you see we've done studies in sleep studies, especially around that with lack of sleep and the effects that has on reaction time, and you basically can be walking around drunk. Your reaction time is that poor. So one of the biggest bang for your buck and the best way that you can control your fatigue levels and your recovery is sleep. And if you're not sleeping well, you know, we look at your judgment drops, your memory drops, your reaction time drops, problem-solving ability drops, creativity drops as well. There's actually, you know, some studies are showing that it is a precursor to some dementia as well. So ensuring that, you've been jet-lagged?
Oh, my gosh, yes.
So people sort of don't believe that sleep's the biggest factor. That's the question I ask, is have you been jet-lagged? And then you'll realise, oh, my God, I'm walking around like a zombie all day because I'm in another time zone. So that's lack of sleep. So it's 8+ hours a night of good quality sleep is a must, and certainly with the traders with their odd hours of trading, making sure that we've got strategies around that to, as I said before, not back-to-back nights if they can avoid it, and having strategies throughout the day to catch up on sleep, because that is the biggest precursor that will get you to a state of fatigue quicker than anything else. As we know, in that fatigue state, you're not at your best, and you're not performing at your best either. And even simple things like dehydration. You know, we're looking at, you know, females 2 to 2.5 litres of fluid a day, males 3 to 3.5 litres of fluid a day, which seems a lot, and it is. Not many people achieve that, but you can get a lot of fluid and water through food as well. But it's strategies around always having a drink bottle in the car or on your desk, because a lack of that sort of hydration as well, your visual attention drops, your reactivity drops, your mood drops, your short-term memory drops as well. So simple things like staying hydrated and sleep, which are very much in our control, we need to conquer to perform at our best and keep that fatigue at bay.
I interviewed Dr. Frank Carl, who is a sleep expert.
Yes, yep.
And he's got me going down this rabbit hole with sleep. It's fascinating. I found that there's a composer, Ennio Morricone. Hopefully I haven't murdered the pronunciation of this.
No. Yeah.
He was the one behind all of the instrumentals for spaghetti westerns.
Okay, yeah.
So just a genius, worked on 500 films. And what he used to do is he used to say, look, I just need 20 minutes and then I'll have it for you. He'd pre-program himself before he went to sleep to say, when I wake up, I will be able to compose this.
Amazing.
Yeah. And 20 minutes later,
Yeah.
and he could write the entire symphony.
Yes.
That is a part, after talking with Dr. Frank, hypnagogic suggestion, that very nice area where everything with logic kind of flies out the window just before you get to sleep. That's forming brain connections between your old brain at the very centre of your brain and your new brain, which is your more mature, modern brain, which wraps around your old brain.
Creativity.
Those connections, between the two, creativity, functioning at a high level, we need to continually make those connections between those two
Staying in the moment
brains.
too. Yeah.
Actually, let's talk about that, staying in the moment. Do you think it's more important to stay in the now, or should people be using future affirmations and visualizations?
Well, I think visualizations is a good way of goal setting too. We all need short and long term goals, and it takes just as much energy to have positive thoughts as it does negative thoughts. So we may as well have positive thoughts, but we always need to practice mindfulness. So mindfulness is staying in the moment. We've all got busy minds, and we'll all be afraid of what's happening in the future that we somewhat can't control. We might be regretting what's happened in the past, which again we can't control. So dragging the mind, the busy mind, into and staying in the moment, you'll get that clarity. I know a lot of clients that we have under a lot of pressure as well practice mindfulness, for a couple of minutes before they're heading into work or before they're heading into big meetings, just so that, as you mentioned before, they've got that pure clarity on what's going on, and they're very much in the moment. Visualizations are great, and certainly in a sporting sense, it was really good to see yourself doing well, and no different out in the real world as well. You want to picture yourself doing well and succeeding at what you're doing and staying positive in that moment. But again, we can't be daydreaming all day long, and we need to bring ourselves back to the moment and stay in the moment. A lot of meditation, a lot of mindfulness practices are going on. And it's not for everyone either. I mean, these other forms I had a mate not long ago say, I just can't get mindfulness. I can't meditate and stay in the moment. But he said, my best way of meditation, where I'm just in the zone and I'm comfortable and I'm happy, is on his bike riding. I said, that's your mindfulness. So everyone's different, and everyone's got their own recipe to be mindful and stay in the moment and get clarity. Not everything works for everyone. So find out what works for you, and there's a stack of ways to do that. But just because it doesn't work for you doesn't mean it's not going to work for someone else. But find your recipe that works for you in terms of that mindfulness. But
I'm glad you said that, actually, because there is some research around this for traders.
Yes.
So definitely being able to calm ourselves is important. But if we de-chunk our skill sets, if we're already good at it, that can be a difficulty. They've done it with athletes as well. Apparently the best way to wreck a professional's golf swing is to say, just move your hands.
Overthink it. Yes, don't overthink it.
Don't overthink it.
As we spoke before, it's innate. You're already really, really good at it. Don't overthink it, and have these little micro changes to what you're doing, and that can upset the whole thing. As I mentioned with my mate with his riding, he gets clarity, finishes his ride, and he's just in a great state. I said, well, that's your mindfulness, and it works for you. Keep doing it. Don't stop it. Yeah.
And what about modelling? Modelling is where we're looking at somebody who's already ahead of us and we're looking to imitate.
Yep.
What do you think the role of modelling is?
Well, from a well-being point of view, it's really important that if we're imitating others, we're imitating the right thing. If we want to make positive behaviour changes with our well-being, which is what we're all about, if the leaders or the people who do it really well are doing it the right way, then absolutely it's fantastic. We've got a saying at Readiness, learn, live, lead. So if we are to teach others or pick up a new positive behaviour, we learn about it first. You don't need to have a thesis about that, but it's just having a bit of knowledge about the science, about what you're trying to improve. It could be your exercise, your mindfulness, your eating, your nutrition, your sleep, all those body type controllables that we were talking about, if we can learn a little bit more about it, that goes a long way in for that positive behaviour change sticking over time. So then it becomes, once we've learned it, we need to live it and live those changes and live those positive behaviour changes, and then we can teach others, we can lead others around that. If we are to do the same old things, we're going to get the same old results. So if we're going to lead others, we make sure we're doing the right thing. And certainly what we found with readiness, we look at a number of data points across workplace factors and individual factors, and what we found is job demands, how hard you're working, and exhaustion, so emotional exhaustion, when they're really high, what we find we need to improve work-life balance, our body's ability to get rid of anxiety, and also leadership. So if you've got strong leadership and a strong support network around you, good work-life balance, and your body's ability to deal with stress and anxiety, well, then those stresses of job demands and emotional exhaustion go down. So we need positive behaviours around those three levels of work-life balance, body and leadership to get those down. So if we've got good leaders around us and we're imitating the right things, well, then that positive behaviour is going to stick over time if we learn about it, live it ourselves, and we can teach and lead others to imitate from us. Really, really important.
I love that.
Yeah, learn, lead, lead. It's a nice, simple thing to.
It is. Yeah, I always like these ones that have just a few words. It's in your
exactly.
mind.
Yeah, and what we were talking about before around that deliberate practice. That's a form of learn, live, lead as well. If we want to make a positive behaviour change to our well-being, that's controllable. Well, then that deliberate practice of learning about it as well, and living it, and then leading it. Keep it simple.
Self-care. How important do you think that is to build in self-care procedures?
Well, again, back on our readiness data that we see with thousands of our users, is that you're talking about high performance people. Accomplishment's a big factor for them in making sure they're accomplishing their dreams and their tasks at work. When accomplishment goes down, sleep is down and coping strategies is down. So when obviously sleep we've spoken a little bit about, but certainly coping strategies are those that are, what is in your control to cope around stress. So eating right, drinking right, your sleep. Your exercise is a huge one, which we can chat about a bit more as well. But if we get that self-care, and that shows, the data shows that if we get that right, that sense of accomplishment goes up, which is really, really important for high performance. So, and well-being is the basis to resilience as well. Ability to bounce back from hard situations, which is what resilience is, and also another word for resilience is our emotional tank. So if we've got that great baseline of well-being, well, that resilience, that emotional tank would be quite high. So we've got that ability to bounce back, not when bad things happen. If we get the body right, that mind and that resilience will follow. So a lot of those factors around that self-care are all controllable. Start with your body first. Yeah.
Brilliant. And how can you use your well-being as a form of competitive advantage?
Well, I had a look at, there's really good Harvard Business Reviews out that have come out, and it looks at the differentials between high performers and non-high performers. And the three main factors that make up a high performer that differentiate them from others is ability, so your skill and ability to do the job. Now, you can't do that in a fatigued state or as well as you would hope. Drive, you must have that intrinsic drive to be able to, let's be honest, do the overtime and work the hard hours, but you can't do that without that baseline well-being where you're looking after yourself. And social skills, which is, I was really pleasantly surprised at there, is that ability to communicate with others, take charge of a team and work with others to make some really smart decisions, but also from a well-being point of view, as we spoke about before, is having that social skills and that social network and that social support as well as a bit of a backup for your well-being as well. So ability, drive and social skills are the three outstanding factors that differentiate others, high performers, from others. And really, well-being is the critical foundation of that for those three factors there. So you can really differentiate yourself from others by just looking after your well-being and making those smart decisions.
And a lot of this is in our control.
And it's completely in our control.
That's
completely in our control.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, there's no magic pill, and you need to find out what works for you. That's the key, because what works for you may not work for others.
Yes. I do remember a while ago I gave my youngest daughter a mental health day because she was overwhelmed And I was thinking just before I dropped her off, I thought, why am I pushing her to get out of the car when if it was me, I'd be under a doona trying to assimilate all of these emotions.
Yeah.
So I gave her a mental health day. We went up into the hills.
Oh, fantastic.
Hugged a tree. We went for a walk.
Yeah.
And
They got physical too. You're not just sitting around watching TV.
That's it.
Yeah.
I said to her,
Coping
mental
strategies.
health days, you have to actually do something.
Yep.
You can't just be in front of a TV because that is not going to give you those endorphins.
The easier thing when you're suffering from any sort of anxiety and mental health is to be on your own, and that's probably one of the worst things to do because you're alone with your own thoughts. So working on your positive coping strategies around there is crucial, absolutely crucial.
The other thing that we did, which I thought was clever, was I said our goal is to give 2 people a compliment.
Random acts of kindness. Fantastic. Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So whenever she's feeling a bit shaky now,
Yeah.
she actually asks to go back to that area
Oh,
that
good.
we went to.
Yeah.
So it shows it.
That's her form of mindfulness as well. She's figured out what works for her. That at a young age, it's a fantastic skill set.
Handy.
Yeah.
So what would you say would be a try this at home tip?
Well, start with your body and your mind will follow. So we can control our sleep. So getting in those great sleep patterns, try and get your 8 hours sleep per night. And it doesn't mean, we all know, as soon as your head hits the pillow, you're straight out. So you might need half an hour either side there. So you allow yourself 9 hours to get the right amount of sleep. And especially if you're trading as well, try and get your sleep breaks throughout the day is another big one. Another huge controllable is nutrition. It is massive. So well-balanced diet. We do a lot of work around performance fuel and certainly what was mentioning before around the finance example. We can't just keep drawing out of the bank. We need to put something back in. So nutritious eating is really, really, really important. The hydration I mentioned, around 2 to 2.5 litres for females, 3 to 3.5 for males per day. So always have your drink bottle on you, keep chipping away at that throughout the day because we know the effects that dehydration can have on fatigue and cognitive ability. Exercise. Half an hour a day, that's all you need of where your heart rate elevates. So a walk's great, but you probably need a little bit longer. But, at half an hour a day where you've got an elevated heart rate and you'll get that endorphin release at the end of that to the body's natural weight, natural high, is another very important controllable that we can do that will set up the foundation of your physical health and which the mind health will follow. And the support network's massive. So certainly whether it's your family and friends, but your network at work, your online network, we're all used to that now. Those little incidental conversations during the day are worth their weight in gold. So there's 5 controllables there that we can start at now that set the foundation for your overall well-being. Check in daily on how you're tracking that, and being able to pick up and be more self-aware and pick up on those triggers that set you off, and being able to nip them in the bud nice and early is critical before they maybe snowball out of control, and act on them. Start some positive behaviour changes, and that learn, live, lead's a really good one. Is if you want to make a positive behaviour change in your life, learn a little bit more about it, live it yourself. And then if others want to model off you, for example, you can then lead others and have a positive impact on others with their well-being. You can start now. There's no point waiting. Let's get onto those controllables with your well-being. Find out what works for you across all those and get into it. And you, regardless of your age and how long you've been doing things, if you've never really looked after your well-being, give it a really red-hot go and you'll realise you'll go to another level because that competitive advantage around well-being is huge, and you'll set yourself aside from everyone else.
I love it. Thanks so much for your time.
No
Simon.
worries. Thank you so much.